Have you ever walked into a room and felt the eyes of everyone turn towards you, not in admiration, but in silent judgment? There's something unsettling about the way certain habits, seemingly small or unintentional, draw attention in the wrong way. We all have them, those little behaviors we aren't always aware of, yet they seem to put us on display, almost inviting others to look and judge. Why is it that some actions can have such a powerful effect on how we're perceived? And more importantly, how can we stop these habits from defining how others see us? From a psychological standpoint, we know that habits are hard to break because they operate on autopilot. These actions, whether rooted in insecurity, anxiety, or even pride, often develop as coping mechanisms or unconscious attempts to influence how others view us. But instead of improving our image, they do the opposite, making us appear less confident and more vulnerable to judgment. The Stoic philosophers would remind us that the opinions of others are beyond our control, and placing too much weight on external validation only leads to dissatisfaction. Epictetus, one of the great Stoics, might ask, "Why do you let the gaze of others dictate your inner peace?" In Stoicism, the focus is on mastering oneself rather than worrying about how others perceive us. The teachings of Marcus Aurelius emphasize that we should focus on our own virtues and actions, not on what others think of us. So, the question becomes, are these terrible habits a result of our lack of self-awareness or our need for approval? And if we recognize these habits in ourselves, can we break free from them through the Stoic practice of self-discipline and inner strength? The answer lies not in seeking perfection, but in understanding that the way others look at us should never define our self-worth. Before we start, please subscribe to the channel. And if you like this video, like it and write your opinion through comments. After this introduction, let's go to the main topic and examine 6 bad habits in this. 6 terrible habits that instantly make people look down on you. Number 1. Seeking approval constantly. One of the most damaging habits that can instantly cause people to look down on you is seeking approval constantly. This need for validation stems from insecurity and a deep desire to be accepted by others. When you constantly seek approval, you rely on others to define your worth, which can weaken your confidence. Over time, people may begin to view you as needy or unsure of yourself, and they might lose respect for you. But why should your self-worth be dependent on others' opinions? As the Stoics believed, true strength comes from within, not from the validation of others. From a psychological perspective, seeking constant approval creates a cycle of dependence. When we rely on others to feel good about ourselves, we hand over control of our emotions and confidence to them. This not only makes us vulnerable, but also limits our ability to grow as individuals. The more approval we seek, the more we feel we need it. In contrast, Stoicism teaches that we should focus on what we can control: our thoughts, actions, and reactions, and let go of the need for external validation. As Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Have you ever wondered how much time and energy you spend worrying about what others think? Stoics encourage us to break free from this mental trap. They remind us that others' opinions are outside of our control, and attaching too much importance to them leads to suffering. In practical terms, this means practicing self-awareness and building internal confidence. Instead of asking, "What do they think of me?" try asking, "Am I living according to my own values?" By doing this, you shift your focus inward, where true confidence lies. Ultimately, Stoicism encourages us to live by our principles, regardless of how others perceive us. When we stop seeking approval, we gain the freedom to act authentically and with purpose. People respect those who are confident in themselves and their values, rather than those who constantly seek reassurance. As Marcus Aurelius noted, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. The challenge is to love yourself enough to stop needing others' approval, and in doing so, you will earn the respect you deserve." Number 2. Arguing for the sake of winning. Arguing for the sake of winning is a habit that can quickly cause others to look down on you. When someone enters a discussion only to win rather than to understand or learn, they often come across as arrogant, dismissive, or even insecure. People who argue just to be right aren't interested in the truth or in hearing different perspectives. They're focused on boosting their ego. This behavior can push others away as they feel unheard or disrespected. But is winning an argument truly as satisfying as maintaining meaningful relationships or discovering new insights? From a psychological perspective, this habit is driven by a need for validation and control. Constantly wanting to win arguments may stem from a fear of being wrong or an inability to accept criticism. Stoic philosophy teaches us the opposite, valuing wisdom over ego. The Stoics, like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, believed that it's more important to seek understanding and self-improvement than to dominate a conversation. In Stoicism, arguing for the sake of truth and learning is noble, but fighting to simply prove you're right is a waste of energy. As Epictetus famously said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." Have you ever been in a conversation where it felt like the other person wasn't listening but just waiting for their turn to speak? This is the essence of arguing for the sake of winning. Stoicism encourages us to listen thoughtfully, to accept the possibility that we may be wrong, and to focus on personal growth rather than victory. In many ways, this approach builds mutual respect and understanding. When we argue with an open mind, we're not just focused on the outcome but on learning and bettering ourselves. In the end, Stoicism asks us to reflect on what truly matters. Winning an argument might bring a brief sense of satisfaction, but the long-term consequences, damaged relationships, missed opportunities for learning, and a reputation for being stubborn, are far more costly. Instead of asking yourself, "How can I win this argument?" ask, "What can I learn from this discussion?" By shifting our mindset from winning to growing, we can engage in more meaningful conversations and earn the respect of others, not just for our intelligence but for our wisdom and humility. Number 3. Exaggerating your abilities. Exaggerating your abilities is one of those habits that quickly leads people to lose respect for you. Whether it's inflating your skills at work, pretending to be more knowledgeable than you are, or boasting about achievements that aren't entirely true, this habit often backfires. When people realize that someone is overstating their talents, it can create distrust and disappointment. While it might seem tempting to present yourself as more capable to impress others, does this tactic truly lead to lasting success? Or does it ultimately erode relationships built on honesty? Psychologically, the habit of exaggerating abilities stems from insecurity or a fear of not being enough. People who constantly feel the need to embellish their skills may be seeking external validation, trying to convince others and perhaps even themselves that they are worthy. From a Stoic perspective, this behavior contradicts the philosophy of self-honesty and humility. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This idea reminds us that self-worth comes from within, not from the approval of others. When we focus on improving our real abilities, we gain confidence naturally, without needing to exaggerate. Exaggerating also disconnects us from the truth, and in Stoicism, truth is one of the highest virtues. The Stoics believed that aligning with reality, no matter how humble or challenging, is the key to growth. If we constantly inflate our abilities, we not only mislead others but also deceive ourselves, limiting our opportunity for real improvement. Imagine a scenario where someone oversells their leadership skills in a job interview. When they're faced with the real challenges of the position, their exaggerated claims will come back to haunt them, causing stress and possible failure. Is the short-term boost of exaggeration worth the long-term consequences? In the end, Stoic philosophy encourages us to embrace authenticity. Instead of exaggerating, focus on self-reflection and continuous improvement. By being honest about where we are and what we can do, we create stronger connections with others and build trust. Overstating our abilities may impress people briefly, but it's humility and hard work that earn lasting respect. After all, as Marcus Aurelius said, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one. Number 4. Overindulging in pleasures. Overindulging in pleasures is another habit that can lead others to look down on you. Whether it's excessive drinking, overeating, or indulging in material luxuries, people who constantly chase after immediate gratification often seem undisciplined or selfish. While enjoying life's pleasures in moderation is perfectly natural, overindulgence can quickly spiral into behavior that affects relationships, health, and productivity. Have you ever noticed how a lack of self-control in one area of life can seep into others? Psychologically, overindulgence often stems from an attempt to escape discomfort or emotional distress. People who struggle to find balance in life may turn to instant pleasures as a way to avoid dealing with deeper issues. From a Stoic perspective, this habit stands in stark contrast to the philosophy of temperance and self-control. The Stoics valued moderation and the ability to remain indifferent to external pleasures. As Seneca once said, true happiness is to enjoy little, needing little. In this light, overindulgence doesn't bring us closer to happiness. It distances us from it by creating dependency on fleeting sensations. Overindulgence can also cause a loss of respect from others because it reveals a lack of discipline. Stoicism teaches that virtue and character are built through self-mastery, not through indulgence. When people see someone who consistently prioritizes short-term pleasures over long-term values, it's difficult to view them as reliable or respectable. For example, consider a person who is always late to important events because they stayed out late partying. Their overindulgence in pleasure affects not only their personal life, but also how others perceive their commitment and responsibility. Ultimately, Stoicism advises us to seek joy in moderation and to avoid letting pleasures control our actions. Overindulging weakens our character, while practicing restraint strengthens it. Stoics believe that by mastering our desires, we can find more lasting fulfillment. Rather than chasing every pleasure, the Stoic approach challenges us to focus on what truly matters. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Number 5. Overreacting to small problems. Overreacting to small problems is a habit that can easily cause others to lose respect for you. When we blow minor inconveniences out of proportion, whether it's a delayed response to a text or a misplaced item, we signal that we lack emotional control. People tend to distance themselves from those who make mountains out of molehills because it creates unnecessary stress and tension. How many times have you seen someone lose their cool over something trivial and thought, "Is this really worth getting upset about?" Often, overreaction reflects a deeper issue, a lack of emotional resilience. From a psychological perspective, overreacting is often tied to underlying anxiety or a need for control. Small setbacks can feel much larger when we're already stressed or overwhelmed. However, the Stoics teach that it's not the problem itself that matters, but our response to it. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." In other words, how we interpret the situation determines our emotional response. By learning to stay calm in the face of small annoyances, we cultivate inner peace and avoid unnecessary drama. Overreacting not only affects our own well-being, but also impacts how others perceive us. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of maintaining a composed and rational mindset, especially in the face of adversity. When we react calmly to challenges, no matter how small, we demonstrate strength of character and emotional maturity. For example, if a coworker forgets to complete a task, instead of overreacting, a Stoic response would be to calmly address the issue and move forward. How might your relationships change if you approached small problems with this kind of measured response? In conclusion, Stoicism reminds us that emotional control is key to leading a balanced life. Overreacting to minor issues only amplifies their significance and adds unnecessary stress. By practicing patience and perspective, we can face small problems with grace and poise. Instead of allowing these situations to disrupt our peace, we can choose to respond calmly and rationally. Isn't it time we stop letting the small stuff dictate our emotions? Number 6. Being defensive. Being defensive is another habit that can lead people to lose respect for you. When we react defensively to feedback or criticism, it suggests we are more concerned with protecting our ego than learning and growing. Defensiveness creates barriers in relationships, as it signals that we are unwilling to listen or accept that we might be wrong. Have you ever noticed how a defensive reaction can instantly escalate a simple conversation into an argument? In many cases, defensiveness is more about insecurity than genuine disagreement. Psychologically, defensiveness often stems from a fear of being judged or seen as inadequate. Instead of engaging with the feedback, the defensive person builds a wall around their ego to avoid feelings of vulnerability. However, the Stoic approach teaches us that feedback, whether positive or negative, is an opportunity for growth. As Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." By rejecting defensiveness, we open ourselves to wisdom and self-improvement, recognizing that criticism is not a threat, but a tool for betterment. Being defensive also damages relationships because it prevents constructive dialogue. Stoicism values humility and the ability to accept criticism with grace. When we're defensive, we miss out on valuable insights that could help us grow. For example, imagine a scenario where a friend points out that you've been interrupting conversations too often. Instead of immediately defending yourself, consider how this feedback could improve your communication skills. Could it be that by lowering our defenses, we not only strengthen our character but also deepen our relationships? In summary, defensiveness closes the door to growth and weakens relationships. Stoicism encourages us to embrace feedback with humility and to focus on learning rather than protecting our ego. When we let go of defensiveness, we allow ourselves to grow stronger and more resilient. Isn't it better to learn and improve than to be right all the time? By choosing openness over defensiveness, we become more aligned with Stoic virtues and more respected by those around us. I hope these Stoic teachings are useful and effective for you. My goal is to make your life better and more enjoyable. I will accompany you in this interesting and meaningful magazine.